Remarks by President Geingob during the official opening of the 5th session of the 7th Parliament of Namibia drew widespread reaction from different sectors. Joining us for her perspective on President Geingob's speech is Emma Phyllis, SWAPO MP and the Deputy Minister of Information and Communication Technology. Very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jonas.
Firstly, the President did not have any kind words for men in his address to Parliament. But what do you make of the speech overall?
Overall, the President gave a very good opening to the official year of Parliament. He outlined the various 9 bills Parliament has to discuss and the importance those bills have for our nation. But for majority of his speech, he really touched on issues of gender-based violence and sexual and domestic violence that is, prevalent in our country. And it's really commendable that the President in his speech outlined the role of parliamentarians in actually passing these laws that come from last year already that would impact the ability of people in the country to exercise their rights. I can give an example. He spoke very, stringently about that majority of the perpetrators of gender-based violence are men. And it is expected that, current offenders or would-be offenders would know that gender-based violence is not tolerated in the Namibian House, that it's taboo, and it can attract harsh sentences should this bill come into force. So I think the speech was really to highlight the role of Parliament, the task at hand for parliamentarians, and the importance for Parliament to pass these laws because they have a direct link to the benefits and possible harms of our society if not passed.
Now, the President also strongly spoke about men, Namibian men being more exemplary. But on social media, it was understood or perceived as the President trashing men. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with that because I think the word trashing even is not in the speech. It was coined by an article that was released right after the speech, really foregoing everything else that was mentioned in the speech. The President really highlighted that, he said, I invite my fellow men, let us become exemplary husbands, exemplary fathers, and protectors of our families. Again, linking it back to say that many perpetrators of gender-based violence are men. Let us also not forget that many households do not have father figures, and that again is a reflective of Namibian men. So it was a call, a kind call to fellow men as the President, the head of the Namibian House, to say, let us step up and protect our families and not become the harm that our society's women and children are exposed to.
But what did you think, or have we gone wrong as a nation in terms of looking after the boy child as well? There's some critics who say that, look, government policies only talk about the Namibian girl child, but never really look out for the boy child. Where have we gone wrong? I mean, why are we such a violent nation?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with our history. I mean, we did go through a violent ordeal through colonialism and apartheid, and some of those wounds are not healed. But secondly, I also think that the programs of government where gender equality are concerned are trying to bring women at the same economic status and social status that men have been enjoying for centuries on end. What I do need to point out, and it's something the President said in his speech, is that today we have majority of women actually taking part in business activities. They are probably earning at the same amount or even more than their husbands, and that they are becoming more educated than ever before. These, of course, are interventions government has taken part. But it doesn't mean men are being left behind. I think the issue is that because we live in a patriarchal society and that men have, through our various socializations, whether it's culture or religion, have been told that you are not equal to a woman and that a woman is subservient to you. That could be a cause or one cause of the harm in which we're experiencing, where we have such violent outbursts when women are becoming equitable to men. But I think the programs are necessary because if you look at the Marriage Equality Act that was passed only a few years ago, women in this country could not buy land. They could not get a loan from the bank before their husband signed on their behalf. I think that is positive. I think the responsibility is on men now to accept that all of us are equal before the law and that all of us have a role to play to build this country. And they need to let go of toxic masculinity tendencies and embrace a world where both men and women are equal.
Finally, sure the number of good men in Namibia, I don't have the stats, but I'm sure the good men in Namibia outweigh the rotten apples that are associated with this gender-based violence and other negative activities. What can the good Namibian men do in guiding their brothers who have strayed off the path? What can they do? How can they participate in bettering the behavior of the men that are now seen as an example of, or as being seen as, oh, this is who Namibian men are?
Yeah, I think they need to speak out. It reminds me of a quote I saw, or an expression I saw somewhere in social media, that every woman knows a woman that has been raped or who has been beaten up, but no man knows a man who actually rapes or beats women up. And that's concerning, because if there are victims, there are perpetrators. As men, or the good men of Namibia, they need to speak out against those who are raping women, those who are beating up their wives and girlfriends, or in any other domestic relationship or setup they find themselves in, and report those. Because at many times, we do have, a group of men, shielding other men and not allowing them to have the consequences extended and the arm of the law extended to them once they actually commit some of these practices. I think that's the only way, because unfortunately the amount of conferences and talks are not changing behavior. We need to equate the behavior with the consequences that it deserves. That's the only way. And I think Namibian men that are good need to become allies of the efforts being made to stop the scourge of gender-based violence and domestic violence in our country. It is tearing our country apart.
Phyllis, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your contribution. Highly appreciated, and wish you and the rest of your team all the best in addressing the issues that we have spoken about and more. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.